former NFL defensive back Tyvis Powell, what he saw from the Browns' first preseason game.
I thought that Deshaun went in there, and I thought he looked good. I thought he ran the offense really well. Thought the ball came out of his hands really quickly. I thought that obviously you didn't love the fumble that he had, and the only one play he had was when he tried to throw it to, I want to say it was Casey Concepcion. He threw it a little bit in the dirt. There was only two passes that I didn't really love from him. Would love to see him push the ball down the field a little bit more. I think that's what you got with Shedeur when he came in. He showed you he could push the ball down the field. His bad plays was he fumbled the snap. That was one. Had one batted pass, and then he sailed the pick, the little over the dig route or whatever. Outside of those three, I thought that Shedeur showed a lot of growth from last year. Looked very comfortable in the pocket, even when he was being blitzed. Bought himself some time, didn't retreat or anything like that. Got the ball out down the field for some explosive plays. Defensively wise, I thought the ones was good. Michael Coach Jr. was the highlight of the day. Jeff knows how I feel about him. Outside of that, the twos and threes got a lot of work to do.
Let's welcome in Emory Hunt from CBS Sports. Emory, appreciate the time. What's your takeaway from the quarterback play? You look at it, and I would agree, Shedeur Sanders looks like he's gotten better.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. I'm glad you prefaced it that way because when I look at Deshaun Watson, firstly, I'll say this. It was great to see him out there coming off 2 Achilles injuries back-to-back. I know the mental toll that could take on a player and the physical toll just to get back to where you once was. And we saw a guy like Tariq Cohen, who was phenomenal, have that sort of injury and his career was done. So credit to Watson for getting back out there on the field. Secondly, what I noticed from Watson is it looked a lot like Cam Newton with the New England Patriots to where, yeah, you see him playing good, but it also shows you it's very limited. And I was saying to a friend of mine, I'm like, man, old Deshaun would have had like 58 yards rushing in that first quarter because there were so many opportunities for him to take off and run, and he didn't do so. And I still didn't see him rip the ball downfield like I wanted to see him do. So he was taking all the short passes, and that's something you saw differently when Shedeur got in there. It just expands the offense because he's attacking downfield, which will then subsequently open up the run game. So, yeah, you can play limited football with Deshaun Watson, efficiency football, but teams are going to just sit on those shorter routes and force him to make a play, and that's where you still have a lot to see. But Shedeur, you saw improvement. You saw him scramble up in the pocket, go get some easy yards, hit the check down. I felt like Shedeur looked more like the starter as opposed to Deshaun. Deshaun looked like a very capable QB2, and Shedeur looked like the potential QB1, if you know what I mean.
So when you look at it, one of the things that Todd Monken has said he's concerned with is kind of the pre-snap, getting him out of the huddle. There were times with Shedeur where they'd get out and it'd be 11, 12 seconds, so probably a little longer in the huddle. Are those things that come and get sped up the more you do that?
Yes, and this is the part about the whole Shedeur conversation that I just don't understand and I particularly don't like. A lot of people are talking about Shedeur and all of these little minute things as if we didn't see him play regular season games last year. Like, so getting in and out of the huddle is not a problem. And the more you do it, the faster quicker it comes. Also, some of the coaches have to wear that blame too. And it's not just for Shedeur. This is a philosophical problem I've had with, coaches for forever. Since the whole John Gruden thing. Like, why does a play call have to be 75 words long? And so why can't we be efficient with our time and get that in and out of the huddle quickly? But yes, and we talked about this, Dave, at the Combine. The one thing I wanted to see Shedeur work on, and you saw him have some concerns and issues with that in that game, is just getting out from under center a lot cleaner. It still looks a little clunky, and that's just footwork. That's just getting the snap, being comfortable, being under center. But that also shows you a quarterback that has spent 90% of the time in the gun from, Little League to high school to college, right? And so that's a concern in terms of like making it look clean because that could throw off the timing of the run play. But getting out of huddle, as long as you get out before 5 seconds, I'm not too concerned. I think it's nitpicky. If it wasn't the pick, it would have been the fumble snap. If it wasn't the fumble snap, it would have been, he's not getting outside the huddle with, 23 seconds left on the play clock.
When you look at the upside, do you still see? And you and I talked at the combine. And you were high on Shedeur there. Has this made you even think he's headed toward where you thought he was going? You know, it's preseason
Yes.
game. It's vanilla. The other thing I'll say, the offensive line he was playing behind again, it struggled. You know, after the ones, which were only in like 7-8 snaps, Browns' offensive line struggled.
But what's interesting though, Dave, is even though he was playing with the two offensive line, I felt like the line didn't struggle as bad as the line he played with last year when he was the starter. I found myself like, I thought he had a lot of time in the pocket, right? A lot more time than he would have had last year when he was out there with starting offensive linemen. So I do feel like what we saw in the first preseason game gives you credence to say, hey, he's building in the right direction. And it was typical of this play in particular that kind of ties last year for this year. And some may see it as a negative, but this is who Shedeur is as a football player. And it's like the anomaly or the analogy, I use of the Barry Sanders or the Reggie Bush, where it's hard to tell a playmaker how to run, right? So it's hard to tell a quarterback that thinks big play how to take the profit, because on the big play to Floria, yeah, he had, I think, Larverdane on the low level crosser, but Shedeur stood tall in the pocket, waited a half a second longer to connect deep downfield. Yeah, you could take the easy play, that would have been a first down, but now you got the chunk play. And you look at that play in a vacuum of last year where we talked about had he just hit the underneath, I think it was Jerry Jeudy against the Ravens, it would have moved the sticks. But he went for Larverdane for the big play. Now you saw it didn't work out for him in that situation, but it worked out for him here. So that's just his makeup. That's just his mentality. But what I love the fact that he didn't try to make a bad play worse in terms of scrambling back. He got enough depth to where he could step up into the throw and absorb the contact and deliver the ball accurately. So I like what I saw. It was a quarter worth of work. I'll be interested to see, getting the reports from you guys, how he goes about in these joint practices, because it sounds like that may affect how often a lot of the starters or whoever plays in a preseason game.
Yeah, as long as it goes according to plan, the starters probably won't play, and Shedeur will be with the twos again, if everything lays out the way they want it to.